my gosh, there are so many people here.
Hey, are you Rachel?
I can do
Rachel.
this.
Rachel.
I can do this.
Hey, excuse me, are you Rachel?
Yeah?
Hi, I'm Dan. Nice to meet you. I was told you were a really amazing brand strategist, and I've been really looking forward to meeting you all day today. Do you have a second to talk? Okay, well that's great. So what I really want to know is if we can work together. And actually, I know you work with some speakers, so what I was really hoping was that maybe if you work with speakers, you could introduce me to those speakers so that I could work with those speakers as well and maybe work with some of their clients. Do you think we could do that? Here, actually, just take my card. We'll be in touch, okay? Thanks. Bye!
Okay, am I going to trip over my words? Huh? What did I? Okay. What did he want again? I just wish I could go home and pet my cat. Welcome to Networking Hacks. I am Rachel, and that is really what goes on in my head. So this morning, we are going to share with you from an introvert's perspective and an extrovert's perspective things that we have learned about networking that we hope will be helpful for you. And I'm going to put down his business card now. There we go. So, hi everyone. I'm Rachel. I'm an introvert, but I'm also here to tell you that absolutely everyone is awkward. Everyone is awkward. Everyone is awkward. I was at an event last year. I said to somebody, made her laugh. Said, don't you wish somebody would just stand on the table and say, yeah, nobody here has any idea what to say right now. Everybody's like, oh crap, what do I say? What do I do? Whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, absolutely everybody in here is awkward. So if I called you up right now, suddenly everybody in this room is looking at you, right? Beforehand, what were you thinking about? Were you self-conscious?
A little.
A little? So the thing that networking does is it can put us on the spot. And networking, right, is a very obviously valuable tool in our lives, in our businesses. But it's something that can have so much pressure associated with it. And what I really want to share with you today, again, like I said, are just some hacks that I personally have learned and that Dan has learned to take that pressure off. So to begin with, I'm going to tell you about my journey. So I launched my business full-time 2 years and 4 months ago. And one of the first things, obviously, as you're launching a business that you do, is you start networking. And there is a very, very large event I highly recommend. It's called Breaking Down the Silos. It happens once a month. In my opinion, it is the best networking event in this whole region. The target is primarily entrepreneurs, but anybody is welcome. And at the very first event that I went to, there were probably 200 people there. We were at Renlick's. And I got 1 foot in front of the door and wanted to turn around and run. I kid you not. And had to talk myself into digging my heels and staying because there was actually somebody there that I needed to talk to about a project I was working on with him. So I had to stay, which was good, but I decided to dig my heels in and stay. So, however, I got there a little bit late. It had already started. And it was like 90 degrees in there. And I didn't know where to put my coat. And so I kept my winter coat on the entire time. So this is me doing my best to look really engaged, standing behind the tallest person in the entire room. Clearly I can see nothing, but I'm doing my best to look really engaged. And you probably can't see it, but there's my bright red winter jacket that I wore all night. And this picture makes me laugh because now so many of these people are my friends, including the tallest person in the room. Happens to be Darren McDonald in that picture. And then, this little head right here, that's me. All of these people are walking around and I'm like, what do I do? I still have my coat on. Who do I talk to? Oh my gosh, am I going to trip over my words? So, all of that is head trash. I don't care whether you're extrovert, introvert, ambivert, it's all head trash. It's all stuff that we have based on experiences that we've had in life, based on things that we've walked through, based on things that we believe. And what that does is it causes us to be awkward. So the main thing to do is to dismantle that head trash. And how you do that is you start by, in that situation, what was it that I was believing about myself? I was believing, first of all, that I was going to screw up, right? Secondly, that I didn't know what I was doing. I don't know, maybe I felt like I didn't belong in the room. Maybe I felt like everybody else knew each other and I was the only one who didn't fit in. Maybe I felt like I didn't have something to say. Maybe, who knows? I mean, we all have a different story. We all have different head trash that we walk through. But the way to get more comfortable, really, with anything in life, but particularly I've learned with networking, is to confront the head trash. And the first step is to realize that it's just head trash, that it's all in your head. And the way that you confront it is you just rewire the conversation. So when you're in a situation like that, sorry if I'm going fast. Am I going fast? All right. So when you're in a situation like that, stop for a minute and kind of evaluate what it is that you're really feeling. And then think about, why am I feeling this? What does this mean that I believe about myself? Or what is the situation that I'm rehashing in my head? And if you can kind of separate yourself from that situation in that moment and realize everything that I'm feeling right now is in my head. Because the reality is that nobody knows what to say. Nobody knows what to do, particularly on a day like today when you're meeting all of these new people. I mean, networking with each other is what this is all about. Absolutely everybody. If you're an introvert, you might be a little bit more uncomfortable, and a little bit more terrified. But even if you're an extrovert, everybody is kind of on pins and needles, like, what do I do? What do I say, right? So that's the first hack that I want to share with you, is just remember that it's head trash. Whatever you're thinking about somebody else, so everything that you're thinking other people are judging you for is probably what they feel like they're being judged for. Oh my gosh, is she going to notice that my shoe's untied? Oh my gosh, is he going to think that I'm like crazy short? Just stupid stuff. We all have stuff that goes through our heads all the time, every second of every day. So if you can, in that moment, identify what is the head trash right now, what is it that's making me feel uncomfortable, and then realize that everybody in the room has something they're dealing with that's making them feel uncomfortable. It's kind of like the analogy of everybody brushes their teeth. Do you ever feel like, oh my gosh, so-and-so is so amazing, Dan is so amazing. Every word that comes out of his mouth is pure gold, and I'm just sputtering right now, and he's probably like, what is she doing? But then if you stop and you're like, you know what? Dan brushes his teeth in the morning. It creates that kind of equalizer that we realize everybody, absolutely everybody is going through this right now. So I'm just going to be a real person, and I'm just going to be myself, and I'm not going to worry about saying some perfect thing. I'm just going to say hello.
So about 5 years ago, I had a situation where clearing my head trash changed my entire life. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, or the suburb of Portland, Oregon. Anybody not from New York here? Anybody? Okay, good amount of you. So I just finished up my time in the Marine Corps and I was finishing up community college, and I was looking at colleges to go to. And I was like, I've traveled all over the country for the Marines, so maybe I could just choose a random college. So I was like throwing pins at a map, and I was like, man, where do I want to go? Where do I want to go? And for whatever reason, I was inspired to go to New York. And I sold everything I owned. I sold my truck, all my furniture in my house. I packed a duffel bag, literally a duffel bag. That's all I owned at that moment in time. I bought a one-way ticket to JFK. I flew red-eye overnight. So I was really, really tired. I had never been here before. Have any of you guys been to JFK, like flown into JFK or whatever? It's a massive airport, right? I grew up flying out of PDX, which is the tiniest airport on the whole Northwest. Flying out of PDX, and I land in JFK, which one terminal of JFK is like twice the size of all of PDX. So I land, I take the tram to Jamaica Station. I went on the wrong platform, so I was facing the wrong way. I had to ask for help to go to the right platform. I went to Long Island University. Now there's two towns that are close to Long Island University. There's Hicksville and there's Greenville. Now Hicksville is like a smaller version of Binghamton, right? It's like got big buildings and commerce and cities and buses and trains and everything. Greenville is like whatever city you've never heard of before. It's like the city in between the cities, or the township in between the townships, right? It's very small. So I'm thinking to myself, now you people that are not from New York may think this, for whatever reason, people who are not from New York think that New York is Manhattan. They think the entire state of New York is Manhattan. I'm super serious. So I get off the train, we get off the LRRR, in Greenvale, and there's a gravel parking lot, a one-way street, and a cigarette shop on the corner. And I was thinking to myself, holding my duffel bag, what did I just do? I don't know where I'm at. I don't know anybody. I have not a single family member, friend, or anybody is in New York. I am literally by myself. Just flew a red-eye flight. I'm exhausted. So I walked to the cigarette shop. Coincidentally, it's closed. It's like 6 a.m. in the morning. Then I walked to the market that's down the street. It's Grace's Market. It's a one-off market. And I was like, how do I get to LIU? You have to call a cab. So I called a cab. I waited about, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes. And I was like, hey, I need to get to LIU. How much is it going to cost? $50. It's 2 miles. So I was taken, my first day in New York, by a taxi driver. That was a great experience. Uber wasn't around, or at least I didn't know about it at that time. So I got to campus, totally exhausted. My first time in Northeast humidity, so I'm drenched in sweat, in clothes that I sweat on throughout my whole 6-hour flight. Totally disgusting, sweaty, nasty, angry, just got taken $50 by a taxi driver. I get inside, and I'm assuming all of you went to college and you had experience with an RA at one point or another if you lived on campus. Okay, RAs are really excited all the time for no reason at all. So I'm showing up, duffel bag, sweaty, tired, and they're like, hey, welcome to Nassau Hall, we love you out here. And I'm like, just please show me my room. So I go into my room, which by the way has no bedding. I don't have my sheets yet. I folded up my t-shirts for a pillow, and I was laying down on my bare mattress in a hot room by myself, no air conditioning in the whole residence hall, thinking to myself, wow, I just made one of the biggest mistakes of my life. And then for whatever reason, I cleared my head trash, and I walked back out into the hallway to the incredibly excited RAs, and I said, hey, my name is Dan. And that moment changed my life, and everything, me being a speaker, me finding my purpose in life, my vision in life, really kind of took fruition that moment. I became a student government president at my school. I graduated with 3.85. I was selected to be the one fellow from my college to go to the Center for the Study of the Presidency and Congress, the CSPC. I practiced that a bunch of times. And all of it happened because I went out and I introduced myself to the RAs, who then connected me with a bunch of other people. And it was just one of those watershed moments you have in your life. And that's how powerful something as simple as clearing your head trash can be for you. That's just how amazing it is. So before we kind of get into the rest of the hacks, I want to preface this conversation with one really important point. And it's really, really important that you guys understand this, because I'll tell you that no matter what you learn today, it's all going to be pointless if you don't believe in this one thought, okay? This one thought is that if you don't genuinely believe and have a passion for the betterment of other people, networking, connecting, and relationship development will do you absolutely no good. It will mean absolutely nothing to you. Because if you're only in it for yourself, have you ever, any of you guys, raise your hand if you've ever met somebody who only wants something from you and never wants to give to you. Raise your hand. Almost all of you should be raising your hand. You don't want to work with those people, right? Those people are not fun to work with. You have one experience with them and you move on, because you know that they don't care about you, they just care about themselves. And when you're doing things like networking and you're trying to develop relationships, that's really important to have in the back of your mind. Don't think about how they can help you, think about how you can help them, and then they will naturally want to help you in return. Can we all agree? Okay, if you all agree, what I want you to do is turn to the person next to you, give them a high five and say, you're awesome.
So now that we now know how awesome everyone is, it's so true. It is so, so true. I think, anybody here in sales? Okay, so when you network, your mind is, I gotta make a sale, right? So as a business person, I very much relate to that. And so when I launched my business, I did not know the business community in this area. And when I would go to a networking meeting, I felt like, A, I had to have a perfect script, right? This is my elevator pitch, and I'm gonna give it, I'm gonna do it right. And I was so, oh my gosh, you guys, I was so paranoid that I was gonna mess it up, that I ended up totally tripping over my words. And then really honestly inside being like, can I please just go home and pet my cats now? Are we done with this? But then it also puts so much pressure, not only on a networking meeting, but on every conversation that you have. Because then when you're talking to somebody, not actually listening to what they're saying. In your mind, you're like, make a sale, make a sale, make a sale, make a sale, make a sale. Or make this contact, make this contact, make this contact. So, at Breaking Down the Silos, that event I was telling you about, my wonderful friend Laura, who is somebody that I met through networking, made this statement one time. And she said, at this event, she's like, just make one new friend tonight. Just make one new friend. And that statement has completely revolutionized networking for me. I am a big networker. I go to just about every networking meeting there is. Cut back a little bit, but I still go to most every meeting that there is. But I don't go in the same way now. I do have some criteria of like, okay, I really want to connect with this person. But when I go in with the mindset of make one new friend, then when I talk to you, I'm really engaging with you. I really want to hear what you have to say. Because in my mind, I'm not like, hey, I hope I do business with this person. It's just, I'd like to get to know this person. This is somebody I didn't know, and I want to know this person, and I want to know the awesome things that you're doing. So it's completely taken the pressure off, and so it's no longer like high stakes networking, you know what I mean? Again, the thing that I just keep coming back to in my own journey is I feel like there's this idea when we're in business mode that we have to be somebody other than who we are, and that's just not true. I'm not saying there's not etiquette, whatever, but it's okay to be a real person. And it's okay to stand up here and talk about the fact that I'm a crazy cat mom. And it's okay, just be who you are. You don't have to have this like business-like persona and communicate with business-like persona. People don't do business with businesses. People do business with people. So why not be a real person from the beginning? So when you go into today, whatever, I just want to encourage you with what has helped me so much. That's my hack number 2. Just make one new friend.
Speaking of friends, we have a few people we want to acknowledge that are here helping us today. Would you like to highlight them?
I would love to highlight them. So Harrison and Dylan, would you stand please? So speaking of new friends that I met through networking, I think I met you guys at Tales from the Trenches, right? Yeah. So they were actually doing video at an entrepreneurial event, and we were talking afterwards, and we ended up going for coffee, and now we're good friends, and they're here recording this morning. So if you need video, they are absolutely south60.com. That's who you want to call. But I just wanted to give a shout out to you guys. Thank you so much for being here today. Everybody give them a round of applause, please.
Also, make sure if you have a chance, if you encounter anybody from the Binghamton Chamber of Commerce, make sure to thank them for putting on this event. They're really passionate people. They really care about you. They really care about the community. I was talking to Janet a little bit earlier today, and she couldn't emphasize enough how in her entire life, the only place she's really felt like she understands the word community is by being involved with you guys. And so, I mean, that's really the level of care that they have. So if you ever have a chance, either on your way out or during a break, and you're at any of the tables that are from the Binghamton Chamber of Commerce, make sure to just walk over and say, hey, you know what, thank you so much for putting this on. I really appreciate it. It'll go a long way for them. They put a lot of time and effort and energy into making this event happen. And speaking also of friends, how many of you have met your husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend in college? How many of you have met your husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend at work? How many of you have gotten a job because you knew somebody? Wow, a lot of you. How many of you have met some of your best friends unexpectedly at an event where you thought it was going to be lame or boring or where you didn't expect to? Okay. That's really what I'm trying to portray here, is that all of you have had an encounter in your life where you weren't expecting to meet somebody significant or important, but it happened. It didn't happen overnight. The introduction, maybe the first time you met, was the first stage, but over time, that relationship grew and developed. And I like to consider this kind of idea of networking, when you're actually doing the networking, as not networking. It's connecting. You're connecting with people. You're relating to them. You're learning about them. You're identifying with them. And the best way for me to think about that is like farming and hunting, right? If you're a hunter, right, so National Geographic, you see the lion. All you see is the lion making the kill on the gazelle, but what you don't see is how many times that lion failed to make the kill on that gazelle, right? So they work and they work and they work and they work, they get the kill, it's over, they eat and they're done. But that's it. They eat one time and they have to go back out and they have to keep trying and trying and trying and trying. I equate this to sales. Okay, when you're trying to make a sale, you're aligned. You're going out, you're trying to sale, and you may hit one client, but then you have to go back out and you have to make more sales. But if you farm and you cultivate relationships and you build and develop those relationships over time, they may not have the immediate benefit of a sale, but what they may end up doing is cultivating into your best clients, cultivating into your best friends, your relationship, your husband, your wife. They may cultivate into clients that will refer you to other clients, right? Because most of the time, when you work with somebody, you don't work with somebody because they have the best product, you work with somebody because you like them, right? And you only like people because you develop relationships with them. And you learn about them, and you develop trust with them. So when I encourage you to think about, whenever you're going through this process of networking, and to kind of remove that buzzword of networking out of your mind, and think, how can I connect with somebody? What can I do to make sure that this person has the beginning of this trust phase, where I get to learn who they are, and I can send them an email, and they actually want to work with me, and they actually know who I am, and they can actually develop a relationship. You still need to be aligned sometimes, right? Because we all have goals and quotas and things like that. But the real pleasure in networking and connecting with people is that cultivation aspect. Learning who people are, learning what they love, learning what they're passionate about, and then finding shared connection, so that then down the road, when that person has a need for you, or maybe somebody that you know, you can help them out, you can connect with them, and sometimes, like I said, it will be maybe your best client, or they're going to connect you to your best client, and that's because they trust you, and they know you, and you connected with them. You didn't treat them as another business card. So think about that as you're networking with people and you're talking to people, about removing the word networking and replacing it with connecting when you're actually in that moment of connecting with people.
And on the time that you interact with somebody, that's an opportunity for connection. And the next point, the next hack that I have to share with you is never underestimate the value of any interaction. I don't care if somebody's holding the door for you. I don't care if they're helping you reach the orange juice on the top shelf in Wegmans, or if you're helping somebody reach the orange juice on the top shelf. Thank you to all of you who do that. We appreciate it. Or if you're doing business with somebody. So here are some examples even in this room. So my friend Dylan from Upstate Merch is here. Shout out to Upstate Merch. We actually met because a client was printing t-shirts of a logo that I designed. And I was like, hey, I just want to know, how's this going to turn out? Is there anything you need from me? So we just started working that way, essentially as a vendor. Dylan is one of my very good friends, and he helped build those books out there. So he didn't know what he was signing up for when he gave me input on that t-shirt design that day. But that all started as a vendor relationship, right? My business mentor, who I'm incredibly grateful for, random of random connections. So he was looking to connect with people who were doing meetups of various kinds in the area. And so he put something on Facebook, hey, does anybody know of anybody who does like creative or entrepreneurial kind of meetups in Binghamton? And a mutual friend in Elmira said, yeah, Rachel does, you should contact her. So then I get this random phone call from this guy named Dan Morey from Corning, and we have a 5-minute conversation about coffee with creatives, and that was pretty much it. And then within a few months, he became my business mentor that I'm incredibly grateful for, and he is to this day. So you just absolutely never know the value of one interaction. So every time you engage with somebody, whether it's a vendor, whether it's a sales meeting, Adam Sable, one of my good friends, who's also an entrepreneur, we met, funny story, so I was a marketing director at the time. Marketing directors, any marketing directors in this room? Or marketing people? Get slammed by salespeople. Slammed. And you're like, oh my gosh, would you please just let me get work done? Leave me alone. So I actually met Adam as a salesperson. He and Jimmy had just started CommuniKey, and they came to present CommuniKey to the organization that I worked for. And I was just so struck by how real they were, and they weren't salesy. And so anyway, fast forward to now years later, we're good friends, and he's a social media guru, by the way, Key Branding Labs, shout out. And he's definitely my social media mentor. So, and that was through a sales pitch when I didn't even listen to sales switches. So you just absolutely, absolutely never know. Want to add anything to that?
No, I mean, I think you really covered everything.
So the other thing that networking does that's really amazing is it allows us to be a resource for others. I had a friend who recently moved to the area say to me, "Wow, Rachel, you're like the hub of fun for Binghamton. Like, you know all of the cool stuff going on." And the reason that I do is because of the people that I've met and the things that I've become involved in. It's through networking. It's through growing my network. Or connecting, as Dan said. I like that word way better. And so if I'm talking to somebody, I'm like, "Hey, I need somebody to paint my house." "Yeah, you know who you should call? You should call Mark Della Carpini." Like, I know all of these people, and now they know me. "Hey, Rachel, we really need somebody to watch our dog next week. Do you know of anybody who does that?" "Yeah, actually, I have a friend. Let me get you in touch with them." So as your network grows, that allows you to become a resource for others. And, you know, honestly, the principle of what you reap, what you sow is true too.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like every relationship I've had that's been successful in my life, and every stage of success I've experienced has been because of somebody else. I haven't interviewed for a job in almost a decade because I get offered jobs. I get recruited from, I get people who literally say, "I really loved your work here, and I'm likable, and people can engage with me comfortably, and I develop a level of trust with them, and I'm committed to helping them in every phase that I can, and so these are people that generally want to work with me. And they want to bring me onto their teams." Or what they do is they recommend me to other people that they know, because they know that I've been committed to them, to helping them this entire time, so they know that I'm not going to let them down. They know that I'm not going to disappoint them, because I've proven to them, I've given them the trust that I'm somebody they can count on and rely upon. And so that's why it's so important when you're having these relationships to think about not that one moment where you're like, "Man, I need to close a sale," or "Man, I really need to make this connection because I want to get into the community," or whatever. But really to think about, I don't know where this can go, and I'm just going to be the best person I possibly can be, so that as I continue to develop this relationship, it could bear fruit in the future. And it may never bear fruit. You never know. But if you have the mindset that you're always cultivating that relationship, it'll be totally worth it. So real quick, I want you to turn to the person next to you, and I want you to ask them what their favorite breakfast cereal is. And if they don't like breakfast cereal, give an example of what else they eat for breakfast, or for dinner, or for dessert, or whatever. So take a couple moments real quick, turn to the person next to you and say, "What's your favorite breakfast cereal?"
Really? Now the very good
Okay, go ahead and switch if you haven't had a chance to make sure. Okay. So, anybody brave in here willing to tell me what their favorite cereal is? Raise your hand. Anybody? In the back.
Golden Grahams.
Golden Grahams. Anybody else like Golden Grahams? Raise your hand. Okay, a couple Golden Grahams in here. Anybody else? Yes.
Master Frosted Flakes.
Frosted Flakes. Glad you answered for him. He's an introvert, probably. Perfect. Anybody else like Frosted Flakes? Okay. Anything else?
Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
I love it. Cinnamon Toast Crunch people. Okay. Any non-cereal eaters? Perfect. So, a couple non-cereal eaters. Anybody do anything wacky for breakfast? Totally off the wall. All of you introverts are really quiet right now. Okay. So, what I just did was something I like to call giving you a parachute. Has anybody jumped out of a plane before? Oh, a few skydivers in here. You were airborne.
Oh, yeah.
Soldier?
Yep.
Thank you for your service.
All
High
right.
five. So, imagine yourself in a helicopter in a plane, and you're getting ready to jump out, and you don't have a parachute. How scared are you? About as scared as you would be networking without any idea on how to start a conversation, right? Imagine you get a cold call from somebody. Or you're making a cold call. How do you start that cold call? It's scary. You're embarrassed, they're embarrassed, you don't want to waste their time, they don't want to waste yours. It's awkward, everybody hates it, right? That's kind of what networking feels like, right? Like a cold call. You're like, well, I kind of know what they do, but I don't really know, how am I gonna, hi, I'm, like when I came up at the beginning of the room, I was like, hi, and you're like, whoa, it's a lot, right? Because that's, you're nervous, you don't know what to do. Now I'll say that introvert, extrovert, it doesn't matter, everybody's nervous. Even speaking up here, I speak for a living, but I'm nervous every time I get up here, right? Everybody is awkward, right? Everybody is nervous or anxious, and everybody has that level of, man, I don't know what to do. So what's nice is the reason why people are jumping out of perfectly good airplanes is because they have something on their back that makes them feel safe. Now, I'm not sure, anybody follow Will Smith on Instagram? Okay, if you don't, you should, because his stuff is awesome, right? But he has this story about jumping out of a plane, and he's like, man, we're so scared to jump out of a plane. We're laying in bed the day before we jump out of the plane, and we're like, man, I'm so scared, I'm so scared, I'm so scared, but I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And it's like, you're not even in the plane. Why are you scared? You're not even in the air yet, and why are you scared? And then what they do is they count, just before you're getting ready to jump out of a plane, they say 1, 2, and they push on 2 when you do a tandem. Because they know most people on 3, they go like this, because they get afraid. So they go 1, 2, and they just shove you out of the plane, right? So the reason why I bring this up is because there's so many ways you can start a conversation from thin air that's like having a parachute. Now, obviously, you're still going to be nervous. But once you drop that parachute and you pull the cord, you're floating and you're safe and you're comfortable, right? So something that I like to do as an extrovert, now this may not be for everybody, but I love asking the question, what's your favorite breakfast cereal? And the reason why I like doing that is because it instantly makes me more likable to that person. Because think about how you responded when the person asked you or when you were talking about your favorite breakfast cereal. It psychologically brought you to this place of like your childhood, right? Childhood memory, or like something kind of whimsical and fun. Like cereal's kind of like, unless you eat like Chex, it's whimsical, right? Like most cereals have like, Lucky Charms or whatever. So it's like, it's whimsical. So you kind of like, it allows us to kind of be awkward but comfortably awkward because everybody ate cereal, or if they don't, they're like, yeah, I eat granola, or yeah, I'm a yogurt person. But you was like, oh, okay, so tell me about your, like, it's an instant way to make that connection with somebody and to start a conversation. Whether they like cereal or not, you can still make a conversation from that. And so that's why I love asking that question, is because I'm psychologically connecting to their childhood as a person. I'm instantly likable. The second I say, what's your favorite breakfast cereal, people are like, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, that was my jam, I ate that every morning. Like, you're automatically connecting to this really fun childhood memory, and just through that moment psychologically, you're now more likable to them. And it's a great tool to use whenever you do that. But I'm also an extrovert, really comfortable asking really odd questions like that. And so some of you introverts will be like, that is not my speed. So I think Rachel has something that might work for the introverts, just in case you're like, I really don't feel comfortable asking what the favorite breakfast cereal is.
So that whole like laying in bed before you jump out of an airplane and you're not even there yet, why are you freaking out? I'm like, oh my gosh, you're in my head. Like, you want to talk about head trash, that's head trash. That's what's going through my head the whole way to a networking meeting. That's what's going through my head as I walk up to you to say hello. All of this stuff, I'm like, So, quick story about that, because it is very effective. So, we just met for the first time last week.
Yeah, 10 days ago.
10 days ago. So, we're having a phone call, and I'm going into the phone call the same way, like, oh my gosh, I have to speak with this guy, I don't know this guy, who is this guy, da da da. And he is very high energy also on the phone. So, kind of what you saw happen at the beginning was a little bit of what happened on the phone. I don't know if he knows that.
I really actually didn't notice at all.
Now you know, full disclosure. But he mentioned the what's your favorite cereal thing. So before we got off the phone, I said, I just have one more question for you. What's your favorite cereal? And so we were talking about it, and then I actually make my own granola, and so it ended up being this very bonding moment, and then I'm like sending him my granola recipe, and then we're like becoming friends over like cerealness.
Well, and my favorite cereal is Cinnamon Life. Like, I love Cinnamon Life is like dessert, breakfast, lunch, snacks, out of the box, with milk in the box, doesn't matter, I'm having it anyway. And she said that that's crazy that I said that because it connected to her childhood because they used to have cinnamon life for breakfast or for dessert.
Yeah. So in our house, we didn't do sugar cereals, but like the one sugar cereal my mom would buy was Cinnamon Life. And so whenever it was in the house, like we ate that as soon as we got home from school. Without milk, we didn't care, like that was our treat. So then when he said, I was like, Cinnamon Life, what? So it did, it ended up becoming this really bonding moment, even though I don't eat cereal for breakfast now. So, however, I will say that the idea of being creative sounds funny. Being creative is what I do for a living. But when you're in that moment and you're working so hard to fight the head trash anyway, the last thing I'm thinking about is being creative. I'm thinking about don't be an idiot right now. Don't trip into the cheese. Don't don't try to say your name and end up saying like, hi, I'm Rachel Jerks. Like, just don't. Just like, no. So something that Arel shared actually when he was here last year that has been a wonderful parachute for me this year is a question that you can ask in any situation. You're welcome, all of you introverts like me, is, so what's something new and exciting you've been working on lately? Or I think he called it, what's a new exciting project you've been working on lately? People ask what? I'm like, be at home, work, whatever. So I've had that conversation with people this year. They've told me about getting ready to go to Iceland. They've told me about having a new baby. They've told me about starting a business. They've told me about getting a dog, getting kittens, like all kinds of things. And so even if it's not necessarily a project, I think it's something that feels safe and you're not going right to what do you do? Because usually, how many of you get past what do you do? Right? You're like, good job. So you ask somebody, what do you do? What do you do?
I'm a state farm agent.
Awesome. Where do you go from there? Where do you go from there? Like in my line of work, people are usually like, whoa, that's cool. Thanks. You know what I mean? Like, okay. And the conversation just went,
Also, another crazy thing about the what you do question is it has a lot of negative connotation attached to it. Like when you say like, what do you do? Like you could be like, I'm really unhappy with my job. What do you do? Like, if you had a really long day at work and you went through all this type of stuff and somebody's like, well, what do you do? And you're like, it's kind of like, cereal brings you to childhood fun. What do you do brings you to adulting. Like you don't, like adulting is like, so just think about it that way. Like try to always, when you're making these connections, like what's your favorite cereal? What's something new and exciting you're doing that kind of invigorates like the exciting stuff we're doing in our life and makes you kind of have a psychological connection with somebody that's positive instantly without knowing anything about them, even maybe not even their name. So you gotta think about that. I actually do have other parachutes, by the way.
go for it.
So I gave you your cereal, right? So I just hand-delivered a parachute. Rachel hand-delivered a parachute to you. So if you're an introvert, you have 2 tools, 2 hacks in your toolkit that you can automatically go to. You could even use them today. But something else you could do that I love to do is whenever I'm at a presentation or a conference or whatever, and I'm an extrovert, so this is a little bit easier for me, but there's still ways, even as an introvert, you can try to utilize these parachutes, right? When somebody's giving a presentation, they usually have somebody raise their hand, right? Oh, well, how many of you are this? Or how many of you like Cinnamon Toast Crunch? I've given you a parachute with that person by asking how many people have Cinnamon Toast Crunch, right? Really easy now, after this presentation, if you were paying attention, to be like, oh, you eat Cinnamon Toast Crunch. So even when you go up to somebody, you're gonna be like, oh, hey, my name is, and you're like, oh, you said you like Cinnamon Toast Crunch, right? And then you instantly have a bond there, instantly. Without even asking what's one new and exciting thing or what's your favorite breakfast cereal, you can be like, oh, you instantly have a bond. So when you're listening to the speakers today, that's something you can do. When they're asking questions or when they're bringing things up, and this is at any conference anywhere in the world, you can do this. You just pay attention. Maybe by you asking a question in a conflict, if let's say you have a Q&A session, you stand up and you ask a question, maybe that's a question that somebody else was dying to ask, but they didn't have the courage to do it. So then after that session, you can go up and be like, you know what, thank you so much for asking that question. That was something that I was really curious about, and I just wasn't sure if I should stand up and ask that question because I felt kind of like on my own. And those are ways you can start a conversation and instantly build trust, right? And also showing vulnerability is a good thing because everybody's vulnerable, right? Everybody's vulnerable. So that's something else to think about. So that's one parachute. Another thing is always talk to the speakers. They speak for a living, or they're here to speak to you. So if you love the presentation, go up and be like, man, really loved your presentation. Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you, right? I appreciate that. And then instantly I'm like, oh, so what's one new and exciting project you're working on today? Or what have you been getting out of this conference? Tell me more about it. And then we can have a conversation, we can develop rapport together. So there's so many different ways for you to have parachutes, you just gotta look for them. And there's so many different ways, yeah, you're gonna go to these conferences and you're gonna be engaged and you're gonna listen and whatever, but there's so many ways, more ways you can engage. You can engage with the people that are sitting out here as well. That's equally as important. You're not here just to listen to speakers and get a bunch of really great tools that you can take home. You're also here to meet people, connect with people, develop relationships that will help you in the future. So look for those parachutes. Look for them as you're going. Look for parachutes that you can use. Look for ways you can make a soft introduction to people, even if it's not what's your favorite breakfast cereal or what's one new and exciting project you're